It is Locked On Jazz for the 7th of April. Jordan Clarkson singing a tune. Quin Snyder's lack of flexibility, which is a criticism, should be a compliment for Hasaan, Whiteside, and Rudy Gobert, and where the Utah Jazz stand. We'll hit all those things as we continue on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. You are
Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every morning. Does anybody else have allergies? They have hit. They always do in the playoffs. If you go back and listen to recordings of my play-by-play calls in the playoffs, my voice is always scratchy. I don't know what I was saying, but I was about to sneeze, so that's why I said that, and I talked myself out of the sneeze. It is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Jazz. Thanks very much for tuning in and making Locked On Jazz your first listen every single day. We greatly appreciate it. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. You can partake in the fun chat room and interactions, or just listen on your podcast player, and available on all podcast players. We do accept 5-star reviews whenever you want to hand them out. Good morning to Kellen and Spencer and Ben and Lacey. Slow, arriving 7 a.m. crowd. I've been trying to go to the gym. I go to Athletic Republic here in Park City each morning and get my workouts in, try to get back in shape, get rid of my winter lair, and get ready for biking. Hopefully not too soon, but if soon, then be able to go do some big rides in May and in June. And I am worn out. This old man's body is not quite up to the 2 workouts a day and 2 jobs right now. So we'll see if I can hang in for today. So hopefully my t-shirt carries you through. It's a motivational slogan. All right. Jordan Clarkson had 10 assists last night. The only way I can describe the way I see Jordan Clarkson play is as though he has internal headphones. And he's just listening to music and kind of chilling. And sometimes the music's one thing, and the other times the music's something else. And it's kind of crazy to watch. And his tune has been really, really good recently. Or at least back to. So November and December were kind of a mess for Jordan. In the 6 games of October, he shot 37%, 24% from 3. And then November, he shot 38% and 32% from 3. And then December, he shot 39% and 30% from 3. And these were just, nothing was good there. The first 6 games, his usage rate was like through the roof. If it was a music, it was a heavy metal tune that was frantic and spastic and sped up, and he just was all over the place. It was maybe, trying to replicate being 6th man of the year without actually kind of being in the zone. He's been way better at home than on the road this year as well. But post All-Star break, Jordan's shooting 47% from the field now and 33% from 3, which is really what he is. He's not a particularly good shooter. And then if you go to since January 1 on Jordan, and I think I've told this story, but it's worth noting. He works a lot with one of the Jazz assistant coaches, Jeff Watkinson. Jeff Watkinson was out with an Achilles tendon health issues for the first part of the season. And Jeff Watkinson came back to work with the Jazz right around January 1st, probably December 28th. Since then, Jordan's averaging 45% from the floor, 34% from 3, back to 85% from the free throw line, 2.5 free throws a game, 3 rebounds, 2.5 assists and a steal, and 17 points a game. So the important numbers there are 17, 45, 34, 50% of his shots is threes. 17, 45, 34. And the reason I mention that is because last year, Jordan Clarkson averaged 18, shot 43, 35% from three, and took less than half his shots as threes. Arguably, since January 1st, Jordan Clarkson has actually been better than what he was during the Sixth Man of the Year award. Like, there's a real, like, just that fundamental set of numbers, shooting a little higher percentage, taking a few more threes, scoring at about the same rate. Then last night he had 10 assists. I mean, last night he's totally in control at a level. He's, when he's on the floor, he's probably the best player on the floor. And so he was able to take control. What's going to be interesting is how he does in the playoffs. Since he's joined the Jazz, since he was in Cleveland, he was horrendous in the playoffs. He got benched by the end of the NBA Finals. He shot in the first round series, he shot 32.5%. In his next round, he shot 30%. Then he shot 30% in the next series after that. And then finally, after 2 games of the NBA Finals, going 3-13, they said that's enough. For the Jazz, again, in the bubble, he shot 46% from the field, 35% from three, was pretty strong. In fact, he had 15 assists and 7 turnovers. Against Memphis, he was a little out of control. He had 14 turnovers and just 7 assists, 2-to-1 relationship the wrong direction. He only shot 24% from three and wasn't great in that series. Against the Clippers, he was a bit better. He shot 44% from three. His 2-point shooting, though, in both those playoff series was pretty questionable. So he was actually, I think, 30 in that series, about 35% from two. It's a big part of what if we're going to get back on track is, how does Jordan Clarkson, how does that unit for the first to the end of the second quarter, third quarter, the end of the fourth quarter play? How, if people are going to switch everything we do, can Jordan Clarkson go ISO and play isolation? Because we don't have a lot of isolation. It's not great that we get caught in isolation. But the reality is that's a little bit of what happens. Like, you can try to avoid it. We can talk about all the things how you don't want it to be in isolation. But the fact of the matter is, once teams are switching, good teams are switching, if you're going to get into the paint and you're going to break the defense and make them shift, then what you're going to have to do is play isolation. The other thing that's interesting here is some of the ways in which switching defense has changed. When we first started talking about switching defense many years ago, the concept was that you would switch, and then if you think about Houston in the first playoff series, you'd switch and Rudy Gobert would slip the pick early and be open for a dunk, and then Rudy got like 7 dunks. And then the next thing that teams started to do is now teams are still switching, but on the backside, they're shifting. So they're playing a switching defense, and then they're shifting on the backside, which makes it even harder to play the shift, because now even if you beat your guy one-on-one, now you're into a little bit of a, you've got to probably make the next pass instead of going and then trying to get some sort of a blender going against the shift and get them really discombobulated. So far in isolation this year, Jordan Clarkson's had 381 isolations. Donovan's had 308. Mike's had 147, and Bojan's had 143. So it's nice that all 4 of our main offensive guys can do it. Trent's actually been pretty good at it as well. They like Trent a lot against the isolation, one-on-one driving aspect of things. There's 2 ways to look at, isolation numbers. One is, if the isolation leads to something, and then just points per chance on that. All of our guys are pretty similar. Mike's the least good. Mike's isolations are actually not very good. Not surprising. He's 34 years old and he's 6'1". Donovan's are the best, and they're really good. Then Jordan, and then Bojan, and then Forrest is actually in that group. A little bit, predominantly off direct actions. Are some of them for Trent Forrest where he gets better. And then we're done. Pascal is another one who I think could circulate back during the playoffs as someone who might, against a switching defense, if we're having a hard time scoring, you could actually bring him out to make plays. It's a really important skill. And it's where Jordan is really important. If you want the top 100 isolation players in the NBA, I probably think the top 90 is a better number. It's like 3 per team. Out of the top 90 isolation players in the NBA, the best in the league is Nikola Jokic. Next is Harrison Barnes, followed by Gary Trent, followed by Luka Doncic, followed by Karl Anthony Towns, Tyrese Halliburton, Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Durant, Drew Holiday, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Steph Curry, James Harden, Bam Adebayo, Terry Rozier, Donovan Mitchell, Malcolm Brogdon, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Darius Garland, Miles Bridges. So we have one guy in that group in the top 20. And that 100 is a pretty loose number. I mean, really, frankly, there are probably, we have a bunch of guys, but if I narrowed that search down a little bit, it could probably give you a better idea of who really, if I do a quick little change and make it to the top guys who've run at least 200 isolations this year, I'm into the top 60. Your tops now are Jokic, Doncic, Towns, Butler, DeRozan, Durant, Holiday, Curry, Harden, Mitchell. That's really the top 10 isolation guys in the league. It's why people don't want to play Dallas in the playoffs. Luke is just too tough out of this. It's why Jokic has been able to carry the load. So the top isolation players in the NBA, Jokic, Doncic, Towns, Butler, DeRozan, Durant, Holiday, Curry, Harden, Mitchell, Giannis, Darius Garland's in here. Pretty impressive. Cade Cunningham is 14th. That's wildly impressive for a rookie. And that's off points per chance. There's a different way to look at it, which would be off action. And that then becomes Jokic, DeRozan, Doncic, Towns, Durant, Butler, Harden, Holiday, Curry, Miles Bridges. Donovan switches to 15th. Not sure entirely how we got there. I started there with Jordan Clarkson, how well he's playing, got to how important isolation is. Good reminder of what you have going in the playoffs. Where do we stand in this playoff picture? Why don't we dig into that next and try to figure it out? And then Quin Snyder's, quote, lack of flexibility is the only reason why Rudy Gobert and Hasaan Whiteside have worked this year, despite the fact it seems to be the most recent issue that everyone likes to complain about the most. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline.net. At betonline.net, we have all of the sources for your betting needs and sports info. Find all your latest sports developments, including week's Masters champion odds, podcast reviews, all the different leagues. BetOnline is continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today on your mobile device to learn more about trends. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's look at some of these. What's the Masters up? What are the Masters? What about NBA Finals? Masters and Major League Baseball opening day? All right, let's quickly look. These are fun. Major League Baseball futures, World Series, Dodgers, Blue Jays, didn't know that, White Sox, Braves, Astros, and Brewers, Mets, Yankees, and Rays all the same. Oh, no, Rays are plus 1,600. Did not know the Blue Jays were that big a see, I learned something. Basketball, NBA futures, got to be Phoenix at this point, right? Phoenix plus 275, Milwaukee plus 575, Brooklyn out of the play-in at plus 675, Celtics at plus 725, Warriors at plus 850, Philly at plus 1,100, Heat at 1,200, Memphis at 1,400, Dallas at 2,500, Jazz at plus 2,500. It's the lowest we've been all year. Is it time to play? Lakers next head coach, Dave Fizdale, plus 300, Quinn at plus 450, Doc at plus 475, Nick Nurse, interesting, at plus 600, Sam Cassell at plus 700. Mike Brown, Kenny Atkinson, Terry Stotts. Oh, all the names are mentioned. I was going to look at golf. This is me personally taking time just for my own enjoyment. I love they have Masters head-to-heads. That's so fun. Who's going to win the Masters? I don't have it. All right. Maybe because it already started. All right. That is betonline.net. The Jazz, where do we stand? I think I can make this without fun graphics and anything else. I can make this somewhat reasonable and to understand. Okay, so let's start with the Jazz and the Nuggets. So the first thing on the Jazz and the Nuggets is that the Jazz magic number is 1. So if the Jazz beat the Portland Trailblazers on the last game of the season, or the Denver Nuggets lose tonight to Memphis, the Jazz are set as at least 5. Okay? That one's pretty easy. We got that? One headline. Denver loses a game, Jazz win a game, Jazz cannot be worse than 5. And they win the division. Woohoo! Too bad that doesn't matter. Used to want that to really matter. Thought the league should bring that back. Now with the play-in, I don't actually know how you bring it back to make it important, but it would be nice if it did. Okay. Can we catch the Warriors? No. So the Warriors are currently sitting at 50-29, and we're at 48-28, 32. If the Warriors were to lose their final 3, which is kind of possible, they would end up at 50-32, and we'd be 50-32. And the only way we catch the Warriors then is if Dallas is involved, and then you go to the tiebreaker, and the fact that we're the division winner means that we would get the 3rd seed. So the only way we catch the Warriors and the Mavericks at the same time is that they lose all of their remaining games. We win all of our remaining games. We all end up tied. We get the tiebreaker. Can we throw that out? We all good with throwing that one out? So we're not catching the Warriors. Okay? If the Warriors beat the Lakers, we really aren't catching. Can we catch Dallas? Dallas would have to lose its final 2, and we'd have to win our final 2, and Dallas plays Portland. Can we throw that out? And Dallas is really playing for the 3 seed, because if Golden State loses one of their final 3 games and they play the Lakers, they play at the Spurs and at the Pels, and those are on a back-to-back. And so the Warriors will rest their players in one of those 2 games, the Spurs or the Pels, and I would assume lose. Now that gets interesting because the Spurs and the Pels might be battling for a home court in the 8-9 game at that point. The same thing, the Mavericks closed the year against the Spurs and could, in theory, lose that game because the Spurs need it, which then is kind of the item that makes us a bit wacky on who we play. But I think it's fair to say we're not catching Dallas if all they have to do is win 1 game and they play Portland. Okay? So we're really, frankly, 1 Jazz win or Denver loss, and we're at 5. And 1 Dallas win, which is they play Portland in 2 nights, we're guaranteed to be at 5. Then the question is, are we playing Luka or are we playing Steph ? And who would you rather play? I don't have any idea. I don't know what's better or worse. I've just decided I'd rather have a week in San Francisco with my high school friends and maybe even seeing my parents, who I think would be back from their trip by then. And maybe my daughter would come and maybe my wife would come because they're not coming to Dallas. So I've decided I want to play the Warriors. It's cool. Never played playoffs against the Warriors, hometown team. What are the chances of that? Dallas beats the Blazers. We think good about that. Dallas beats the Spurs. Little funky, right? Like last game of the year, Spurs might be playing for home court. Dallas is playing for the 3 seed at that point, but they care enough to go after that. It matters. Nobody wants to be in the same bracket as Phoenix. No one's going to tank to get to us because nobody wants to get to Phoenix. And everybody actually wants to play Denver, I think. So Now, all of a sudden, let's say Dallas wins those 2 games. The Warriors play the Lakers tonight or tomorrow. I think tonight. Then they're at the Spurs and at the Pels. They lose one of those, and we have the Warriors. Dallas wins out. Warriors lose one. It's 5-4 Jazz Warriors. Boy, are you guys going to hate? You got your choices are either hating Draymond or hating Luka by the end of the week. That's really what it gets down to. Clay's pretty hard to root against right now. Steph's impossible to root against. Warriors be fun. Steve Kerr, Quin Snyder be great. 2 super good dudes. Jason Kidd's not nearly as interesting, frankly, as from that standpoint. All right, let's go. Root Warriors. All right, if we're rooting Warriors, then what we're rooting for is the Warriors to lose one of their remaining games while Dallas beats the Blazers and the Spurs. And then we see San Francisco, super duper burgers, super duper Gott's soft serve ice cream, maybe a fancy dancy restaurant night at Bennu. Let's do it. San Francisco, Blue Bottle, Ferry Building. Let's all go together. We'll all crash in Locke's room. No, we won't. It sounded fun for a minute. I told you I was a little wacky today. I have a neat company that's a Utah company I want to tell you about. And then Quin Snyder, lack of flexibility has made the Hasaan Whiteside, Rudy Gobert thing work all year long. By the way, I don't actually think the lack of flexibility is true entirely. I'm using a term of fans out there, probably Twitterversy, kind of having fun with it. Hey, by the way, did anybody mention the Lakers missed the playoffs? I just think we're going to mention that every day for the rest of the year. Did the Lakers miss the playoffs? The Lakers missed the playoffs. The Lakers missed the playoffs! Hate the freaking Lakers. Okay, anyway. Maybe the Dodgers will suddenly go 0-162 this year and everything can be perfect in life. There's a really neat company in Utah. I actually was in business with them for a while because they invested in Locked On. It's called Summit Capital. It's a local investment group made up of successful business operators. And they provide capital for management seeking to buy out the owner of a business they work in. I'll explain that in a minute. The owners seeking to sell businesses and entrepreneurs seeking capital to help grow their business. I was the third. We were Brian Henderson in town set us up with the crew, Lily White and Matt Peterson, David Lillywhite, Matt Peterson in the group over there. And we had a great experience with them. They are entrepreneurs themselves. They approach it from the idea of an entrepreneur. So they're not just pounding you about when they're giving you or when you're getting them their money back or when any artificial timelines or the only time we ever talked exit is when we called them up to tell them we had an exit. It was kind of cool. And they said, shoot, we should have invested more money. And I said, thanks. That's the best compliment you can give me. We can invest in all, they invest in all time. So here's what that first one is. You know someone or you work in a company that, the owners have been there for a long time. You're managing it. You're running for them. They're great people. They probably don't want to put in the sweat equity to take the next step as the company. They're probably about to phase out a little bit. You don't have the equity to be able to buy them. So what you can do is go to Summit Capital. They'll give you the equity, and then you build that business plan of you knowing what it is and how to take that company to the next level because you've been managing it for all that time. It's kind of cool. So if you're interested or know someone, set them up with Summit Capital. You can text Matt at 801-796-2033 or LockedOnJazz@SummitCapUtah.com. Locked On Jazz at SummitCapUtah.com or SummitCapUtah.com, just the website. All right, here is what I think people lack in understanding on how you manage an NBA team every single day. So Quin Snyder gets criticized some for lack of, I don't even know what to call it, but I guess it's flexibility or being too regimented. So first thing is players really like to know when they're going to play and when they're not. And our substitution patterns are pretty set. If we're healthy, we know who's going to be, you give me the time of the game and I can tell you who's going to be on the floor. Jerry Sloan did the same thing. Most coaches do, actually. Drives fans crazy. Because the fun part of being like a fantasy owner or playing a video game is you can interchange players as though they have no emotion, and you can just do this all the time, and you don't understand why an NBA coach won't do the same. And the other thing it drives fans crazy for is because fans want to win every single game like it's the end of the earth and never for one moment think about, most fans, trying to manage an 82-game roster for the entire season. Let us isolate what's happened this year with Rudy, Gobert, and Hasaan Whiteside. So Rudy wants to play in 3 stints. So Rudy plays about the first 5 minutes. He goes out. Hasaan plays 4 minutes. Rudy comes back for 3, plays another 3, plays 6. Hasaan comes back for like 4 or 5 minutes. And Rudy closes. Brutally hard on Hasaan. And Hasaan, in all honesty, has been frustrated by it at different times during the season. And particularly early in the year, when Hasaan played really well, he would not understand why he didn't get to stay in the game. And many of us would watch it and think, wow, Hassan's playing really well, let him roll. The minute you do that and break the system and allow Hasaan to ride his hot hand or a night he's engaged, you're insulting him every time you pull him out of the game. Quin has been remarkable and that he's virtually never balked from the rotation once all season long. And had he broken just once, then anytime you're taking Hasaan out of the game at any time, no matter whether it's your regular rotation or not, you have shown that you would be willing to alter it a little bit, at least enough on some given night that you didn't alter it on this night, and now he's mad. But last night you saw Hasaan rolling, he gets taken out, you kind of see him do this, and then you almost seem like, yeah, I got it. I know, I always come out right now. For 80 games, I've come out at the exact same time every single game, regardless of my performance. And why the regardless of my performance is important is because then that's just how the system works. You're not being judged. And then from a standpoint of a Jordan Clarkson or somebody else, Quin always says to them, play free, play open, play, at your best, let it fly, let the fly. You let them do that. And then they play with that freedom and they get taken out at the exact same time, regardless of performance. I have faith in you. I believe in you. This is what we do. This is your role until your role changes. But the minute you start to fluctuate that in any way, shape, or form, now every time Rudy goes out, he might be upset. Every time Hasaan goes out, he's certainly upset. And Hasaan does a little roller coastery stuff every now and then. So when you when you watch this and you see it take place, it's actually an incredible thing on how you keep a team together for 82 games. I feel like there should be more to my description here, but just kind of walk through it. Like on the night where Hassan's not very good, the fact that he does the exact same stint on the night that he's good is super important in regards to Hasaan kind of not having a night where you can say, well, you let me play 12 straight minutes on that night. And then frankly, when Rudy was out a few games, Hasaan played the exact same way as Rudy did, and Azubuike slid underneath. And when Azubuike played, he did it the exact same way. Kind of kept everyone together. It's important. Playing Daniel House instead of Royce O'Neal to close a game the other night's a big deal. It's near the end of the season. It was a message, like it's on purpose. Done it twice now. It's a big deal. It might be our closing lineup in the NBA playoffs, depending on how Royce is playing. That's a massive thing. Juancho playing instead of Rudy Gay is a massive thing. And then Quin backed up that, like in certain matchups, I'll still use Rudy Gay. But holding a locker room together for 82 games is an incredible task. And fiddling with it all the time. The other one was, I was asked, I think I said this on the postgame thing. I was asked last night, whether Quin would be more flexible in the playoffs than he's been in the past. Who should have he played? Like, that was what, I went back and looked at it last night because I was kind of mystified by the comment. So Donovan played 35 minutes, 38 minutes a game last night. Royce played 30 last year. Royce played 39. Bojan played 38. Rudy played 36. Clarkson played 26. Joe played 28. He actually had a pretty good series against the Clippers. Mike wasn't available. Favors played 11 minutes a night. Niang went 2 of 13 and 1 of 10 from 3, which as much as I miss him, I hate to see. Like, here was the Jazz bench last year beyond that. Mia Oni, Ersan Ilyasova, Juwan Morgan, Matt Thomas, Trent Forrest, Jarrell Brantley, and Udoka Azubuike. Who's playing out of that group? Like, most of those guys aren't in the league. By the way, and one last note, I thought this was kind of interesting. We will go into the playoffs as the 5th seed, which to me, I think is about where we've been. In 16-17, we were the 5th seed. In 17-18, we were the 5th seed. In 18-19, we were the 5th seed. In 19-20, we were the 6th seed. Last year, we were the 1 seed. And then previously, we were the 5th seed. Last year seems to be the outlier on a weird COVID year than anything else. 14-15, the last time that we had home court advantage in a playoff series was possibly 09-10 before last year. No, we were the 5th seed. Even Darren and Booze didn't have the home court advantage very often. And the last time was the 2000. We've only had home court advantage in the NBA playoffs once since 2008. Kind of crazy. All right. Nice to talk to everyone today, or talk at you, hopefully with you. Hopefully like you were talking back. We were communicating as a group. It's the idea here, even though it's kind of a one-dimensional me blabble for 30 minutes, have 3 things to talk about every day, share it with you. We just hang out. I don't know. Sleepy? Wacky? Tired? End of the season? Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed. See you.